Welcome everyone, I'm Archit Seshadri. Thanks so much for watching World is One News. Let's get you your top stories making headlines right now. Just hours before Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's address at the UNGA, India ups the ante. Foreign Secretary Jay Shankar summons Pakistan's High Commissioner. Tension builds up at the line of control in the valley just 3 days after the deadly terror attacks in Uri. India makes structural changes for its budget. The merger of the union and railway budget brings the 92-year-old practice to an end. Karnataka's chief minister calls for a cabinet meet, says the Supreme Court's order to release 6,000 cusecs of water to Tamil Nadu is just impossible. And the Board of Control for Cricket in India goes against Reform Committee's warnings and elects the Secretary and Selection Committee head in its annual general meeting in Mumbai. Welcome everyone. The story is in just a moment, but first we start with Pakistan. Just hours before the country's prime minister is expected to speak at the United Nations, Nawaz Sharif in New York, India is upping its ante. Foreign Secretary Jay Shankar has summoned Pakistan's High Commissioner Abdul Basit. India has handed a list of evidence regarding the Uri terror attacks. Meanwhile, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Vikas Swarup has called upon Pakistan to live up to its public commitment for not allowing terror machinery to thrive in Pakistan.
The latest terrorist attack in Uri only underlines that the infrastructure of terrorism in Pakistan remains active. We demand that Pakistan live up to its public commitment to refrain from supporting and sponsoring terrorism against India. In the recent incidents, we have recovered a number of items that include A. GPS from the bodies of terrorists with coordinates that indicate the point and time of infiltration across the LOC and the subsequent route to the terror attack site. B. Grenades with Pakistani markings. C. Communication matrix sheets. D. Communication equipment. And E. Other stores made in Pakistan, including food, medicines and clothes. If the government of Pakistan wishes to investigate these cross-border attacks, India is ready to provide fingerprints and DNA samples of terrorists killed in the Uri and Poonch incidents.
Well, ahead of his address at the United Nations General Assembly, Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif has consulted his army chief Raheel Sharif. Both had a conversation over the phone. Sources say the two talked on Tuesday night, and they talked about the situation in the valley after all the prevailing tension with India after this weekend's deadly terror attack in Uri. Now, it's expected that Nawaz Sharif will raise the issue of the valley. We're not sure at this point to what extent the discussions will go. Well, as tensions ramp up between India and Pakistan after the deadly terror attack, a U.S. lawmaker is moving a bill to Congress to designate Pakistan as a state sponsor of terrorism. Charles Gibson explains.
Days after the Uri attack, reaction is spreading across the world. And it's gone as far as the US Congress, as Republican Representative Ted Poe introduces the Pakistan State Sponsor of Terrorism Act. In a statement, Poe said his bill would force US President Barack Obama to issue a report on Pakistan's links to terror within 90 days of its passage. Secretary of State John Kerry would then have to follow up with a concrete decision on whether the US considers Pakistan a state sponsor of terrorism. But this series of events would only be triggered if the bill passes through Congress. That's far from certain, with time running out for US lawmakers. And the Hindustan Times foreign editor Pramit Pal Chowdhury told WION the bill is unworkable for the US.
Designating Pakistan as a state sponsor of terrorism would mean America would have to end almost all of its cooperation, military or otherwise, with Pakistan, and would effectively have to impose some sanctions on Pakistan, which they're not prepared to do.
In the immediate aftermath of the attack, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted that the perpetrators wouldn't go unpunished. And with Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif taking the Kashmir issue to the United Nations, the shockwaves from the Uri attack continue to spread globally. Giles Gibson, WION, New Delhi.
Well, just a short while back, the defense minister spoke about the Uri terror attack, admitting that there was a security lapse. Now, we also have learned from that discussion that the country of India should basically not ensure that this should not happen again, basically trying to evaluate what went wrong and how to prevent it from happening again in the future.
When something goes wrong, while you try to correct it, you should also ensure that it does not happen again. And there are management principles to ensure that this happens. I think we will definitely find out what went wrong. Also take steps to ensure that it doesn't go wrong.
Well, the search for the suspected militants continued on Wednesday in the town of Uri. Now, this the day after security forces foiled 2 different infiltration bids and killed 10 militants in a gunfight. Unfortunately, 1 Indian Army soldier was also killed in that operation. India's army fought 2 groups of militants trying to cross the line of control with Pakistan. The flare-up in violence comes after India blamed Pakistan for this weekend's deadly attack that killed 18 soldiers. Meanwhile, in Srinagar, the city is still reeling. More curfew in place now for the 75th straight day in the valley after 80 civilians have been killed there in protests, and lots of eruption of violence there. This after Burhan Wani was killed back in July of this year. Our reporter Anshul Vora gives us more perspective from what's going on in the ground. Here's the story.
For over 70 days now, there's been unrest in the valley of Jammu and Kashmir. The separatists have called a strike, one that they are just not calling off. My colleague Anis, you were there in Uri. Indian soldiers have been killed by terrorists. Anis was there covering it. On your way back, the stone pelters threw stones. You've got a fractured arm now. Tell me, you've been covering the story very closely. How much worse are these protests if you compare them to 2008 or 2010?
No, the protests that happened in 2016 were much worse than what happened in 2008 and 2010. The intensity has been higher and there have been more killings this year as compared to over a specific period of time as what happened in 2008 and 2010.
And as I look around, everything is shut, every shop is shut. Only some places in the morning, maybe some vegetable vendors and the pharmacies are open. So how are people surviving for over 70 days if there's no business?
See, primarily what happens is there is a protest program given by separatists, and what they do is they keep a specific period of time for people to buy all these essentials. For example, if in the past week there was a time frame given by the separatists between 6 p.m. to 10.
Right, but what about business? What about, I mean, sure you can buy vegetables and buy pharmacy, but what about businessmen?
The business of course, the business has been here. There has been losses to the telecom industry only for over 300 crores in past 3 months. But that's how it is. The people are very angry this time.
The people are very angry this time. And what about the fact that the soldiers in Uri have been killed? Is there any sympathy for that here amongst?
Of course. It has been condemned widely. Even the separatist leaders have condemned it. The violence in any form is condemned everywhere.
Okay. So how do you see the situation moving forward? I mean, the PDP government, has any assurance come from them?
As of now, what people have been saying is that the government has not been able to address the ongoing situation. Even when Home Minister Rajnath Singh visited Kashmir twice in 1 month. But even that has not helped. What people have been demanding is talks between India, Pakistan and separatists, but there has been no initiative taken by the central government.
No, but the central government says no, terror and talks won't go together, and then Pakistan, the Indian government is saying is behind the Uri attack, and they're also fueling unrest in the valley. So in that sense, it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation.
Yeah.
Won't you say? But the point is, there is terror also that is emanating from Pakistan, creating unrest in India.
But Kashmiris, the protesters, don't consider themselves as a part of the terror link. They call these protests non-violent. So they have been all the civilian killings that had happened in the past 3 months, they were not involved in any terrorist activity. So in that sense,
But
there is also
Bani,
anger.
I mean, there's enough evidence also to link some, people.
Yeah, in that sense, but people, he was seen as a youth icon. People have been given
So
support
it's
to him.
different, right? So he's seen, and then there is evidence that he was a terrorist. That's what the security agency is saying. You say, here he was a youth icon.
Yeah.
And in that sense, there is that gap in perception. But what would you call a man or a boy who has a gun and kills people with it?
Yeah, he is seen, whatever he is seen, he would be called by anybody. There is a social consensus on that. But at the same time, we also have to understand that people are demanding at least some sort of relaxation, some sort of redressal to the ongoing crisis in Kashmir. And the separatists and the government has to take some initiatives in order to chalk out some plan to address the ongoing.
So a big question really at this moment is, what is the plan of both the central government and the government of the state of Jammu and Kashmir? What is Mehbooba Mufti planning to do? This is Ansel Vora with Anis in Srinagar, Jammu and Kashmir, with camera person Mr. Saini for WION.
Well, sending out a strong message to Pakistan, Afghanistan has also hinted at a possible boycott of the upcoming SAARC summit in Islamabad this November. Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani called India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and condemned the cross-border attack in Uri on Tuesday. Afghan's envoy, Shahida Mohammad Abdali, also says Pakistan should be singled out for spoiling regional peace and stability through terror. And on the question of boycotting November's SAARC summit in Islamabad, he said there must be a comprehensive effort by regional countries. Well, now to other stories. India has made structural changes in its budget. India's cabinet has approved the merger of the railway and the union budget. This will end a 92-year-old practice of presenting the separate railway budget. Now, though the government has said that the railways will continue to retain its functional autonomy, India's finance ministry has also proposed that budget be presented on the 1st of February every year instead of the last working day of that month.
इस आने वाले वर्ष से रेल बजट और जनरल बजट amalgamate होंगे. There will be only one budget, which will be the general budget, and all proposals with regard to the railways will be a part of the general budget.
The railways and union budget will work in harmony, will work together. This will also bring in huge spin-off benefits like having an integrated transport solution, because as we have seen over a period of time, railway has been losing substantial part of a nodal transport share. Now once we have an integrated approach, allocation of public resources where they are really most needed, considering the environmental aspect of it, railway is the most environmentally transportation, so we'll be able to address that issue.
Well, the Chief Minister of the Indian state of Karnataka has called for an all-party cabinet meeting to discuss next steps. This after both Karnataka and Tamil Nadu have sort of been at each other's wars over the Kaveri river water sharing issue. The Karnataka Chief Minister faces fresh new challenges about the Kaveri water amidst the growing violence there last week. Now, Karnataka says it just doesn't have the water and it would be impossible to implement what the Supreme Court wants. He termed the verdict as just something that's unimplementable. Kaveri Supervisory Committee asked Karnataka to release 3,000 cusecs of water per day from September the 21st until the end of the month. But the Supreme Court on Tuesday doubled that quantity of Kaveri River water to be released to 6,000 cusecs till next week.
पानी राष्ट्रीय निधि है और अफसोस है कि उसको लेकर के राज्यों के बीच में जंग जारी है. दोनों प्रदेशों के मुख्यमंत्री को अपनी अपनी जनताओं को विश्वास में लेकर के इसका हल निकालना चाहिए. अदालतों के फैसलों को भी जनता अब मानने को तैयार नहीं.
That Supreme Court orders, which are specially made in such river water disputes, following upon supervisory committee orders, following upon Kaveri tribunal orders, have to be implemented in letter and spirit by both states.
Well, the Indian government has said that Italian Marine Massimiliano Latore can remain in his home country till the International Tribunal decides which country has the rights to try the case of killing Indian fishermen. Now, the Supreme Court on Tuesday sought the Indian government's response on the plea of Massimiliano Latore. The Italian Marine had sought an extension in his stay in Italy after his current grant of stay ends at the end of this month. The 2 Italian Marines are accused of allegedly involved in the killing of 2 Indian fishermen off the coast of Kerala back in 2012. All right, now time for a quick short break. Much more stories to bring to you on the other side. Stay with us right here on WE ON.